What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue with our schedule previews and projected records, very early projected records here. Utah is up next, and keep in mind with these projections, these are not predictions. Our official predictions won't come for until after spring at least, but it's just a very early look at these teams and just looking at how these teams should perform based off of how tough their schedule is, what that record should look like. Utah coming off of back-to-back Pac-12 championships, Rose Bowl appearances. It's going pretty good at Utah right now. The Pac-12 overall going to be pretty tough in 23, though. You look at their schedule from last year. Of course, they played Florida in the non-conference, lost on the road at UCLA, on the road at Oregon. All of their losses in the regular season came on the road, and they had a pretty tough schedule in the Pac-12, playing USC and Oregon. They didn't play Washington. I guess that was the good news for Utah, but beat USC at home. That was probably the highlight of the regular season. And then, a couple, again, tough losses, UCLA and Oregon, but still was enough to get them into the Pac-12 championship and enough to win it. 9-3 regular season. We'll see what the projection looks like. But first, let's look at this schedule. The non-conference games, they'll play Florida, and they'll play on the road at Baylor. What are you doing, Utah? Why would you schedule Florida and Baylor? I don't understand that when you've already got 9 conference games. I just don't think there's any reason for a Pac-12 team, a Big 10 team, Big 12 team. I don't see any reason why they should schedule two really quality Power 5 programs, but hats off to them. I give them a lot of credit for scheduling the games like this. I think that could help them out more in perhaps a 12-team playoff, but when you're in a 14 playoff and you want to make a run at the playoff, it might bode well to have a little bit of an easier non-conference schedule. They do have Weber State, so you've got one easy win in there. Let's look at how it all goes week by week. They will play Florida to start things off, and then it's Baylor on the road. So first 2 games are your 2 big non-conference games. I don't know, maybe, I guess it's probably happened, but you don't see very often a team start off with 2 very quality opponents in the non-conference like this. Very interesting what Utah did with Florida and Baylor. I think Baylor has a chance to be a top 25 team this year. Florida might actually be the easier game playing at home. Florida with a lot of new faces this year. Anthony Richardson gone and a number of other players. Weber State after that on the 16th, so they'll play their 3 non-conference games, and then they will ramp up the Big 12 conference play with UCLA first on September 23rd. That will be a home game, and then a tough one on a Friday night on the road at Oregon State. That one has upset written all over it, and we've seen, again, Utah struggle, especially early in the year in some of these road games. So a Friday night road game early in the year, recipe for disaster there for Utah. But they should still be favored in that game. We'll see if they can survive it. They get a bye week after that, and they'll play Cal next. So Cal will be next. That'll be a home game. Then it's on the road at USC on October the 21st. Back home for Oregon on the 28th. So a tough back-to-back there with USC and Oregon. But at least you get one of those games at home. Arizona State after that on November the 4th. Then it's Washington on the road November 11th. Another tough game there. Arizona on the 18th, also on the road, and Colorado November 25th. So they do have back-to-back road games there with Washington and Arizona, but only one of those games should be a big-time challenge. Although Arizona, they seem to be on the way up as well. So this is a tough schedule. When you talk about the Big 4 in the Pac-12 with Utah, USC, Oregon, and Washington, they're going to play the other 3 teams out of that group, and they'll play 2 of them on the road. Plus, they play UCLA, who is a team that some people maybe would put near that top 4 as well. So their conference schedule is pretty tough. And then you got Florida and Baylor in the non-conference. So this is a very tough schedule for Utah this year. And we'll see how it turns out. But it's going to be a tough run to get back to that Pac-12 championship, because you've got USC on the road. Then you've got Washington on the road. And then that Oregon State game, which again is going to be really tricky on a Friday night on the road. Plus you throw in Oregon, 4 really tough games there. And then if you want to look at the non-conference with Florida and Baylor, yeah, this is a tough schedule. You got Colorado late in the year. Deion Sanders, he'll have time to kind of get his program going. I wouldn't want to play them late in the year. I'd rather play them early in the year. So a lot of things going against Utah here with this schedule. But like I said earlier, I give them a lot of credit for scheduling Florida and Baylor. So But let's get to the projections. This is what we'll use to make the projections. If it's a 50-50 game, it'll stay in the white. Less than 20, over 80, those are games where I think the spread is going to be 20 or more points, a 17 or more at least, something in that range. The orange and the blue, those are games where I think the spread will be 11 or 10 to 17, 10 to 20 points, kind of in that range. And then the yellow and the purple, those are games where I think the spread will be about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points, something in that range. And again, your 50-50 games, those are games where I think the spread will be about a field goal, 3 or 4, maybe 5 points or less, something in that range. So we'll start with the easy wins for Utah. And you got one. You got one easy win here on the schedule. That is it, and that's Weber State. You could maybe put Cal into this category. They had a pretty rough year last year. Lost a lot of close games, though. Colorado, Arizona, maybe you put in this category. But again, those programs seem to be trending upwards. Arizona State, maybe you could put them in that category. Well, as far as the projection goes, it really doesn't matter because all the games in the blue and the green, we consider all those as wins. Then we average out the rest. So Cal, Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, you could put them in the green, put them in the blue, doesn't really matter. I'm going to say that the spreads for these games will not be 20 points. I think they'll be a little bit lower, probably in that 14 to 17 range. But yeah, again, that's 5 wins that Utah should be able to get. Upsets happen all the time. You never know. Arizona is on the road. Colorado is a team that we just don't know a lot about right now. But we're going to go ahead and say that they most likely will win these 5 games. And then it comes down to the other 7. So how about the games in purple? Again, these are games I think Utah will be favored by about a touchdown. I think Florida, Baylor, UCLA, and Oregon State probably fit here. I do think Utah, I know they lost to Florida last year, but like I said, this is a Florida team that's probably not going to be as good. And the game is at Utah, so that bodes well for them. Baylor, that one's tough because it's a road game. That one maybe should be in the 50-50 range. It's very close. I mean, I think it's very close to where I think the spread could be 5, 4, maybe 6 or 7. If I had to guess right now, I'd probably say 6, and that would put that into the purple. So that one, again, could go into either category there. UCLA, I think Utah will be favored by 6 or 7 points there as well. Same thing with Oregon State. But like I said, that's going to be a tricky game. My personal opinion, that's more of a 50-50 game, but I think Vegas probably will favor Utah. And again, it's a thin line. It is a thin line with some of these games for Utah, especially Baylor and Oregon State on the road. If you drop these into the 50-50 range, that would change the projection just a little bit. Actually, I don't think it would make a difference, which I'll explain in a second. So then you've got USC, Oregon, and Washington. These are your 50-50 games that I think could go either way. Like I said earlier, these are your big 4 teams in the Pac-12 this year. All of them are preseason top 10, top 12 teams. And so I think these will be the games that will determine who goes to the Pac-12 championship. Should be a lot of great games. The Pac-12 is going to be a lot of fun again this year with Bo Nix coming back, Cam Rising coming back, Penix coming back. All of these Caleb Williams, all the quarterbacks for these 4 teams will be back. So that's a big reason why all 4 of them are looked at as potentially top 10 teams this year. So what's the projection? Well, when you average these games out, we use 65% for the purple, 50% for the white. That means in those 7 games, Utah would go 4-3. So 4-3 would be the projection. That would put them at 9-3 overall. And if you did change a couple of these, you dropped them down into the white, it actually would still come out to be 9-3. They would maybe be, you're not going to drop all the way down to 3-4 in those games. You're still going to be right there at 4-3, maybe 4 point something or 3.75, whatever the number was, depending on how many games you changed. But 9-3, the projection for Utah, that is the projected record. Again, not my official prediction. That will come out later. But I think that's a pretty fair projection when you talk about these 7 games. If they go 4-3, that's still a pretty good season. Like I said, a very tough schedule. So I think would be a good year for Utah. Probably not quite as good as fans would hope for. But 9-3, the projection for Utah in 2023.